Welcome to CERT Rodeo in a Box, a training module to help you further develop your skills as a CERT volunteer. It is impossible to recreate the adrenaline that comes when responding to an actual disaster, but this presentation will explore the art of moulage, teaching you and your team how to create realistic wounds and injuries to increase the effectiveness of your training exercises. Excerpted from our own CERT Rodeo with local experts in the field, this class will walk you through the basics of moulage and provide you with the skills to create your own hands-on learning and practice opportunities.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Weber, and I am a makeup artist freelance within the Kansas City area. My background is started in the theater and continued through my dance and art degrees. I am very interested in doing movies as well as beauty makeup, so I do pretty much everything. I do special effects. And I'm here today to help you guys learn how to apply these special effects techniques in a very simplistic way to your moulage. The reason that moulage is so important within your training is to get a very real sense of what is going to happen within your emergencies. We want this to be as real as possible for you guys. It is one thing to say, oh, I threw up on you. It is another thing to actually be thrown up upon. It is different when you enter into a situation and there's a fire and there's smoke and there's people screaming and there's blood. And this will hopefully help you get to that. What I'm going to go through is the basic kit that you can purchase, its contents, and then the kit that you can make at home. So first of all, I'm going to go through our moulage kit that you can purchase. I believe they can be purchased online. And these are nice and easy because they come with everything involved already. Things like casualty simulation wax, plastilina, which is like a clay, sponges and cotton balls and blood and little bits of makeup, prosthetic wounds. These are great for a time saver. They basically apply with, there is an aid in here that you apply to the person, and then you can maybe blend out the edges with some foundation that you would purchase at the drugstore. That is one easy way to do things. These are all things that are going to be very safe for the skin. They have been tested and tried and true. It comes with a small vial of blood. These are all things that it's just going to, as we go through, I'll kind of compare and say, this is what's in your kit if you purchase it. This is how you can make it a lot easier for yourself. The kit is nice and easy. Everything's in it. With this, you do have to do a little bit more work with going out and collecting some things, but in the long run, it's cheaper, and in my opinion, the effect is much better. Within your home kit, there are also more expensive ways to do things, as well as more cost-effective ways to do things. In a basic kit, things that you're going to want to use are, one, hand sanitizer. It is very, very important to be sterile when you are working with all of these things. So of course you are going to want to sanitize your hands and make sure that the person that you are applying to sees that you are using this. It establishes trust, creates that bond. When you use products like this, you are going to want to use spatulas in order to keep your product safe. You don't want to dip a brush like this into your product and then onto somebody's face and then back into your product and then onto somebody's face because you transfer bacteria. So you take a little scoop out and place it on a palette or on the back of your clean hand, and you can use it from there. It also saves, if you're working with multiple colors, it also saves bleeding. So on that note, you also want things like cotton balls, spatulas, sponges. Things that I have in my own personal kit are, these are sponge applicators for eyeshadow. They can be purchased in any beauty supply store, as well as spoolies, which are good for a multitude of things. These are mascara wands, disposable. And then we also have lip applicators. These are all things that are just going to help you move through things quickly. You can just throw them away. You don't have to wash out an individual brush every time that you do that. Baby wipes are another thing that are invaluable. You can clean up messes very quickly. They're cheap. Buy the unscented ones so that if anybody has any skin sensitivities, that's something that they do not have to worry about. Cold cream for removal. Hair clips and hair ties. This is something just to pin back people's hair and get it out of the way while you're applying lots of blood and latex and all those types of things. Paper towels, tissues for cleanup. You will have corn syrup as well as corn starch and cocoa powder, and these are for mixing up blood, as well as food coloring. Most people will have, you can go and buy liquid latex if you want to from a store. It is very expensive, it smells terrible, and it's a lot of people are allergic to latex, so the better, cheaper solution is actually Elmer's Glue. You can go and get this, it dries quickly, it is safe for the skin. Fake blood, these are the things to make fake blood. You can purchase fake blood, but it also is one of those things where it's very expensive. It's about $15 for this tiny little bottle. A larger, about a gallon, is maybe $32. So it's much more cost effective to do it this way. I highly recommend purchasing a bruise wheel. This is Ben Nye. You can buy Mayron. These can be purchased in any costume shop or purchased online. The reason I recommend this over eyeshadows are not very pigmented. They are almost just as expensive. Something like this is about $15. And things like eyeshadows are hard to see, hard to work with. You almost spend just as much money as you would with something like this. This is a Cuts and Bruises. You can actually see they're kind of have some similar colors in there. You don't have to buy something like this, but this is definitely recommended. Within that vein, this is a basic little costume makeup. You can buy this, your vampire, your Frankenstein that teaches you how to do that, and these are very cheap, but they work just as well. Petroleum jelly, spirit gum. Spirit gum is used in theaters to apply prosthetics or facial hair very quickly, and it is easily removed. You can find it very easily almost any time of year at a party supply or a costume shop. Alka-Seltzer tablets for foaming at the mouth or foaming from a chest wound. These two items, this is a loose powder and this is a white cream. These are going to be to simulate your pale face, your shock, or your death. You can use things like lipsticks in order to get your redness for bruises and things like that as well. You will also need baby powder, mixing tools. This is ash to simulate burns or smoke inhalation around the mouth. This is instant oatmeal, and instant oatmeal can be used just like any other type of food item to create vomit. You could blend a can of soup, anything that works, anything that's going to be comfortable for the actor to put in his or her mouth. Just remember that somebody has to actually kind of hold it for a little bit. So the instant oatmeal is probably one of your best bets. I know that there's a couple recipes for things like bile as well. So very briefly, I'm going to talk about blood. Blood is something that, again, we can make very cheaply on our own. There are several ways to make blood. One of those ways would be to start with corn syrup, and then you would add food coloring. Usually you want a combination of red and blue. Obviously you want more red than you do blue, otherwise you're going to end up with purple blood. There are three types of blood that you want to use, which is thin blood. You're going to actually just mix a little bit of water with your corn syrup. Your regular blood will just be your straight corn syrup mixture. And then your thick blood gets to be a little bit trickier, and you can, again, purchase thick blood, or you can use cornstarch to help thicken that up. The other way to make blood would be to actually just use cornstarch and water. Obviously, the more cornstarch you add, the thicker your blood is going to be. It is possible to make it in the microwave in a container like this. but it's a little bit harder to watch, and you're going to want to stir it if you know anything about cooking. So much easier on a stovetop, and then the more you add, you'll start to see it get thicker and thicker and thicker. And when you are done, then you can add not only your food coloring, but cocoa powder. Cocoa powder is going to give it a little bit of darkness and a little bit of opacity. The other thing that you might want to make up ahead of time would be a spray bottle with water and then a few drops of glycerin. This is going to simulate sweat that doesn't just immediately roll off the face like water would. Glycerin, I believe, can be purchased in any drugstore. I talked briefly about the vomit and that recipe. There are many recipes. Again, it's pretty much whatever you want as long as it's safe to accidentally ingest. Much like with this large moulage kit, you're going to want something to put everything in. You can grab something like this. This is actually my airbrush / art bin, but this can be purchased at a art supply store, or you can also get something very similar that looks like a tackle box. You could probably get it at a sporting goods or possibly at a hardware store. It has separate compartments and everything folds up nice and neat, so that is something that is very nice to have on hand. Also, you can purchase something like this. This can be found at the Dollar General, and within it there are separate plastic bags. If you don't have the money for separate containers, it all kind of folds in nicely. I'm just going to very quickly go over some of the more common injuries. Some of them I will actually demonstrate to you, and some of them I will just kind of go through because they'll be very basic. I will tell you how to do very basic applications of these, and then I will tell you how to expand upon them. First, we're going to start with our hand sanitizer. And then we are going to, for the convenience of our actor, pin her bangs or any hair out of the way with a clip. So the first thing I'm going to start with is a bruise. Like I said, bruise wheel. We're only going to use a handful of colors with our bruise wheel. We're not going to use the green and the yellow simply because those are for old bruises. Anything that just occurred would not be an old bruise. So this is us removing and being sanitary. These are some tiny little brushes that we have here. And the other thing that we will be using is a sponge that you can kind of tear off corners to. So the first thing I'm going to do is lay down a layer of redness around the eye. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to want to move quickly. And in fact, the less perfect it is, the better. Take another corner here, go into our darker color, and just kind of layer in. Fingers are fine to use to blend out. You can see where she doesn't have a lot of color up here. That's okay. We're going to use that to kind of create a little bit of dimension. So now we're going to go in with this darker purple, and this is where it would get a little bit thinner. That's maybe our impact point or our hardest hit point. Or you can also go through and kind of dot things on and stipple it. And then our very darkest color that you may not even use at all, depending on how severe the bruise is. Now with anything like this, you could keep working at it and keep working at it forever, but chances are your time frame is going to be very limited. I imagine that most people have maybe an hour, maybe two if they're lucky, to get everybody ready, and depending on how many actors you have, you may have to get through everybody very quickly. So yes, we could keep going with her bruise and make it bigger and better and darker, but chances are you will not have time for that. Now we're going to move on to a really basic burn, a first degree burn, and then I will take it from a first degree burn all the way through to a third degree. So we've got our basic colors here. You could also use your bruise wheel colors. That's perfectly fine. I've got a little bit of a sponge. So a first degree burn is probably going to be mostly redness and irritation. Another thing that I thought about in our beauty makeup classes, one of the things they teach us, this is just for your actors, is when you are touching somebody, a lot of people, you want to hold their head still, don't mash their head and hold them still and force them to turn. You can ask them to turn. A light touch is usually all you need to tell someone to turn their face. So we're working in our second color here, and that's going to be more towards the middle. Again, it doesn't have to be, generally these things are not symmetrical, and the less perfect, the better. You just want to make sure that they're blended and you're not getting your little spongy corners there. And our real dark right in here. So that is going to be a very, very basic, more first degree looking burn where we don't have a lot of blistering yet. The way to create blistering for a second degree burn is to take tissue, pull the plies apart, and I've already shredded a few pieces off. You're going to kind of tear it unevenly, nice jagged pieces, and I'm going to kind of, this is where our Elmer's glue comes in handy. We're going to apply the Elmer's glue to the tissue as well as a little dab to her skin. And you're going to let it kind of dry a second. So you're going to kind of mash it into your tissue here. Let your tissue get good and saturated with it. And then you're going to place it onto her skin. Tear off any excess that you don't need there. And what you can do is just kind of basically tear out little chunks of it. Not too much. This is going to eventually kind of simulate our skin here. And now I'm going to go back in with a little bit of my color and go around it. And this is something we didn't really talk about. This is foundation. This is something we can get in a drugstore. Buy the cheap stuff. It can be very expensive and it doesn't matter. So we're just going to take a dab of this and put it over her skin to simulate that that is a flesh tone. You could leave the tissue there if you don't have foundations or you don't have the right color. It's hard to carry a range of colors because they are so expensive. But this will help simulate blistering and bubbling of the skin. Another step further with this for a third degree burn would be to inject air into it with a canister of maybe air duster, if you have an airbrush, something like that, and that will puff up that. You would probably want to do that with something like liquid latex though, because it's more stretchy and flexible. You can also add a little bit more darkness. The other thing you can do is add a charcoal or ash to the outside of it to show that it is a very severe charred burn. That's when you're getting into your third degree burns. You can also use that ash around the mouth to show smoke inhalation. Moving on to a basic laceration. We're going to use the same trick with our Elmer's glue here. Apply just a thin amount to her arm. Again, Elmer's glue very rarely hurts anybody, but if you're worried about it, do a patch test. You can also use the spirit gum for this. And I would say the one nice thing of latex versus Elmer's glue is that latex dries very quickly. Elmer's glue, not so much. Does not need to be perfect. Does not have to match her skin tone. It just has to be close enough that we don't notice that this is tissue and not balled up skin. Down the center, we're going to take this dark color It's the navy blue from my bruise wheel, but you could also use black eyeliner. And this is just to give it a little bit of depth. And dark color. As you can see, we're moving a little bit outward with the color. And this is our thick blood, thick goopy blood. You want this on hand because it stays put. And this is a little bit of our thin blood, our regular blood. And that you can just kind of let, it'll eventually, if she moves at all, it's going to drip down her arm and give it a more realistic appearance. Okay. And there is a real basic laceration. Now, obviously, you can make this look bigger using cotton balls. String out cotton balls and build it up bulky. You can make a huge wound with cotton balls and latex and glue. So our next wound that we're going to do is an impalement. Something like a piece of plastic glass, nothing that could really hurt them, or a piece of wood that is maybe jagged on one side and flat on the other that you can stick out of the wound. The way that we're going to attach this, you can either do a little bit of spirit gum on the end, and it's going to be the same thing where you want to coat the edge of your piece and then also coat the skin, and you're going to want to let it dry for about 15 seconds. Blow on it, let it get tacky, and then apply it. And you can apply it right in the center of the wound there. The other way to do that is something like this would come in the kit. It's casualty simulation wax. If you can't find that, you can always use something like plastilina. This you can find at any art store. It's basically a clay and it is safe for skin. So this stuff gets real tacky, real sticky, wants to stick to everything. You can coat your fingers in Vaseline beforehand and it will help kind of not stick to you so much as your third party here. I'm just going to stick a little bit of this to the edge, maybe a little bit more. You see it sticks very nicely, and you can literally just kind of stick your impalement there right in, and it's going to stick pretty much straight out of the skin like that. Then what you can do once you're done with that is do basically what you did here. You're going to take your blood up around the edges and smooth everything out. Now, the more wax that you have, the better it will stick and stay. As you can see, this will probably slowly start to move that way. But it actually has some pretty good resiliency, and there's hardly anything there. So that's your impalements. I'm now going to move on to shock or death. I'm going to remove a little bit of this white here. You don't need a ton. The other thing you can purchase, this would be more, I guess, for death because it is slightly blue tinted, but it's a powder that you can get. It's like a powder foundation, but it's a chalky blue color, and that helps give the appearance of having most of the blood drained out of your body. And we're just going to very, very lightly. She's not a clown. We don't need a white face. And what you want to do is make it so that so you can just barely see some white. Like I said, she's not a clown, so she doesn't want white face. You just want her to look more pale than she normally would be. The other thing that would occur with this is a darkening underneath the eyes. You can use black eyeliner. I'm just going to take my dark here and very lightly. Okay. Go ahead and look up if you could. Open your eyes. There we And there would be our shock and death. The other thing you can do is really either white or blue lips. So if you have a little blue eyeshadow or a little blue makeup, you can just kind of go over the lips a little bit as well. So there we go. Well, that concludes our very, very basic moulage training. You can expound upon that, you can keep moving forward, you can add to your moulage, you can look online, you can watch YouTube videos for special effects. There are many things that you can do to improve your skills. It takes practice. I would suggest practicing as much as you can on yourself, on your children, on your spouse, your friends, your dog, anybody who will sit still for you. The more you do it, the faster you will get at it, and speed is very, very important when you're trying to get through a lot of people. You know that for me, time is irrelevant, and I start doing something and I think I'm moving quickly and I'm not. So just practice that and practice moving quickly, and know that it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to look as good as it can for the amount of time that you have. It is also important to possibly train others. So that you have, the more people you have trained, the better. If you could train your actors, that would be fantastic, because each actor can they can team up and work together. The contents of your kit, again, you can tell some of those things you will have on hand in your home. Other things you will have to go out and buy. You may want to team up with somebody else and see what they have in their kit. Build upon it slowly. It's kind of expensive to go out and buy it all in one shot, but it's much easier and much cheaper, much more cost effective to go out and purchase these items yourself and have them on hand. You can also speed up your process with making things ahead of time, your blood ahead of time, and all of that. The more organized you are, the more clean your kit is, the easier time you're going to have with doing this. Thank you guys so much. I have had an awesome time.